is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering His Dark Materials, Book 3, The Amber Spyglass, Chapters 28, 29, and 30, Midnight, The Battle Plan, and The Clouded Mountain. In this episode, the war against heaven has begun, and Mrs. Coulter ups her game to a biblical level.
Literally.
Welcome to Unspoiled.
That's the joke.
I always forget the little details in the intro because especially now that we do this so infrequently.
That's fair. I even when I do it all the time though on certain shows, it's like I'll do an intro that is on a bunch of other stuff happened, and then there's a giant explosion that kills half the characters at the end. But my intro will be about how this one guy really liked that soup, and my co-host would be like, "Really? Nothing about the explode? Okay, sure. We'll talk about his soup that he likes. That's fine." Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I am Owen, and I have never read this series.
That's true.
Natasha's read it.
I've read it.
A long time ago. She doesn't remember that much.
In a galaxy far, far away.
So, what did you think of these chapters?
Why are you asking me? I've read this before. What did you think of these chapters?
I thought they were pretty good. Not bad. Things are heating up a little bit.
Yeah, this is the part that when I read it for the first time, I was very uncomfortable with.
Oh, because Mrs. Coulter is seducing the angel?
No, because God's a decrepit old man, apparently.
Yeah, I like that. It was real spooky, and I did not catch on what that was supposed to be until the angel was like, "Yep, that's the authority. We're taking him away from here." And apparently he plans to kill him, which is...
I mean, yeah.
Why didn't he do that earlier?
I don't... it's kind of unclear to me. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But yeah, it just, as somebody... despite all of my best efforts, going to church with my father did sink some things into my brain.
Right.
And God being an eternal, all-powerful, immortal... just... The fact that this is an enfeebled old man was just disturbing. It's just upsetting. I don't want to think that the master of the universe is fallible and weak.
Well, the master of the universe is He-Man.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, it's real creepy, and they really paint a picture.
Oh, yeah.
Of how gross and spooky, and he's cackling to himself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like he's having little tiny conversations inside his own head that involve nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because he's locked in that crystal box, so nobody can talk to him.
Yeah, because I feel like when we were told that he's not in charge of things now, they made it seem like it was kind of his own free will that he just got disinterested and kind of pushed things off onto Metatron and just went just to relax in the bottom of the mountain. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
But maybe he did, and maybe just being by himself has made him senile. Or maybe the reason he did that was because he was senile, and now he's even more senile. It's really interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's Metatron was like, "Oh man, we really have to talk about Dad," to all his angel friends, and they were like, "Well, we trust you, Metatron, to make the best decision." And he's like, "Ah!" So yeah, it's basically when Grandma stops making any sense.
Yeah.
And then the oldest brother takes over, and then all of a sudden nobody else has any inheritance.
Yeah. Yeah. He sells all the jewelry.
Yep.
It's
so weird. I mean, she probably, how she is, guys. She can't be trusted. She probably just lost it.
I like that you're giving him a rich New Hampshire accent or something. Oh,
I was just trying to give him
the
a
authority
goofy
put
accent,
me in charge. Have you seen my mountain?
Because really what I'm thinking of is that he should have a voice like a used car salesman.
Oh, well, I actually listened to the audiobook this time because now that things are really picking up, my attention is able to, like, focus on it more.
Okay.
And the voice for him was pretty interesting. I think it was Philip Pullman doing it, but he really put some energy into it. But I can't help but imagine the voice that the three-headed giant has in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where it's all echoey.
None shall. Oh no, that's the other guy.
That's the Black Knight.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the. Get the sword out. We want to cut his head off. Oh, cut your own head off. But like when they talk in unison,
yes,
like it's a silly voice, but it's got like a backing to it. Mm-hmm. And Metatron's a creep.
Yeah, he is a creep.
He's just like, yeah, I used to be an old guy, and I had lots of wives, and it was great.
Yep.
And I could use some wives now that you mention it. You interested in doing some wifing?
It's a really weird, because... Okay, so A Wrinkle in Time is going to be coming out. So I imagine that the book will have a bit of a resurgence because it kind of fell by the wayside. It was pretty popular when my mom was a kid. Mm-hmm. And the writer, Madeleine L'Engle, wrote another book, and I cannot remember the name of it. And it's about a couple kids who go back in time and get stuck in the same desert as where Noah's building his ark.
Wait, he built it in the desert?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the whole point, is that there's no water anywhere, but he's building this ark and everybody's like, okay. And he's building his ark and there's angels walking around getting with some of the ladies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they mentioned that in this too. Mm-hmm. Well, they talk about how Enoch is from that's his name, right? Enoch?
Sure.
I should look it up. It actually does matter.
But what I had been going to say was that they are walking around getting with ladies, but there is, she uses the actual angel names from the Bible a lot of the time.
Okay.
So she's, trying to legit draw some, alternate history kind of thing, and she has a lot of the names of biblical figures, his daughters and wives and whatnot as well. And it was just something that when I read it, I was like, what is this? And it wasn't until I went and checked in on what she had been talking about that I was like, oh, this is in the Bible. This is super weird. That just gets skated right over when you're talking about angels with somebody at church, you know?
Well, they talk about, I think it's Enoch. Well, when we cover through the chapters, I'll try and look it up because I don't feel like that's right. Mostly because Enoch is the name of Steve Buscemi's character in Boardwalk Empire, mm-hmm. So I feel like I would have remembered that. But they talk about how he's from the apocryphal texts, which is this whole interesting thing that you do not learn mm-hmm. as especially a Southern Baptist Christian in America, where they're just like, no, the Bible exists. It was the way it's framed in your religious education is basically that the Bible was just written sequentially, mm-hmm. and that there were no other texts in any other way, and that it's just always been this book.
Right.
As though it was, someone in Genesis wrote down what was happening and then handed it off to the next guy, and he just filled in more pages until he got to the last page.
Yeah, an ongoing, journal.
And it turns out, which is so interesting for me, because growing up, I was taught that Catholics weren't real Christians, mm-hmm. and
Same.
that their whole deal didn't really count, mm-hmm. even though the Bible that Protestants have comes from the Catholic Bible, where some pope, however many hundreds of years ago, decided, okay, these are the ones in the canon, mm-hmm. those other ones don't count, mm-hmm. and that's literally the Bible we have. What the fuck?
Yep.
I remember learning that and just being like, yeah, this is all bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when I realized that there were 8 different versions of the Bible, I was just baffled. I just could it just bothered me so much. It's the same. Okay, so I feel about comic books the way I feel about the Bible, that you're just going to pick whatever version of a character that you like according to whatever you want. And it doesn't matter that there's a whole other version that shits all over that one and makes it seem like that doesn't even count.
Well, I like that about comic books. For me, the distinction is that one is the thing that people take very seriously and use as a justification to say that entire peoples are wrong
I'm
and
not
should
putting
be persecuted.
them on par with each other. I'm saying that having like nothing that's actually really canon, not really, pisses me off. You either have to have something that's absolute, or you don't get to call it absolute and
Right.
stop it, you know?
Yeah. I find that very fun narratively and in that sort of a way, but when it's something that people actually believe in, it makes me just be like, how do you believe anything?
Sorry, guys, I knocked my mic there. Well, the only reason that I say it that way is because of gatekeeping
Right.
with comics, and people do treat it sometimes like, well, this is the one, and it's like, no, there's like probably 8 different versions where that whole like storyline that you're clinging to gets completely undone. I'm not worried about it.
I like that in that same context of gatekeeping, because you can use that to disprove any kind of gatekeeping attitudes. It'd just be like, no, fuck you. This thing was different and this thing was different. And you can have like your solid, concrete, idealized version. Like there's a million different versions of Superman. So the idea that Superman has to be exactly one certain way historically doesn't make any sense. But I do think that there are wrong ways to take the character. I still hate Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Even though they're, you know, it's not that things have to be exactly one way, but a spirit of something has to be preserved, which is kind of how I feel in Christianity, in that, like, you're literally called Christians. You're supposed to be like Christ, like that impossibly good dude. Like, even if you're not, even if you don't believe everything that Christianity has to offer, everything that's in the Bible, you can't deny that Jesus was a good dude who cared about people and didn't have an ounce of hatred in him. And so much of what I encounter in, you know, fundamentalist Christianity is so not that. And yeah, it's why I actually kind of like the Gospels and like the story of Jesus, is because he was very, very anti everything that I encountered in church. Like his biggest adversaries were people who took the letter of the law more seriously than the spirit of it.
Right.
But we're getting way off track.
Yes.
But we're actually talking about the stuff that I feel like you're supposed to be thinking about in the book. So
Right.
I don't feel bad about it.
All right. So Lord Asriel is, when we start off with chapter 28, Midnight, he has just rescued. It's so weird to me that her name is Marissa. Mrs. Coulter. I will not call her Marissa. I can't do it.
I like the way the voice actor says it. He says it very almost Hannibal Lecter-y. Marissa.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, it doesn't feel right to call her by her first name.
And she is being brought to the fortress and left in a room to rest. And she summons the alethiometrist.
Yeah.
What?
Why are people still trusting her at all to do anything or to not fuck things up?
I mean, she kind of doesn't for like a minute.
We find out later on that like the text makes it seem as though she's still on Lyra's side and is trying to do what's best for Lyra. But if you're freaking Lord Asriel, you should still be like, no, she could do something crazy at any moment, and she doesn't have my best interest in heart. So why is she allowed to like summon people and all of this?
I mean, the summon thing I don't find to be... I mean, Lord Asriel, to me, I get the feeling that he's like, I mean, you could try to fuck things up, but we're literally dealing with God and like a billion angels, and I'm really not worried about you. You're the least of my concerns. If you want to talk to this guy, then sure.
That's why Lord Asriel's a chump.
I mean, maybe that's an argument is to be made.
Like, the idea that she would go sneak away and literally like flirt her way into heaven's side and fuck them over just because it turns out that that's not actually what she's trying to do doesn't mean that it shouldn't have been a consideration.
I mean, I think that he believes her. Like, as much as he can't necessarily trust that she'll do what she said she's going to do, I think he just really believes that whatever she does will be to Lyra's benefit. When he rescues her, she's in the middle of desperately clawing to try and save her daughter.
That's true.
You know, so I think that in his mind, she's kind of earned that.
Yeah. I don't trust Asriel. I think this book is probably going to end with things coming out okay for Lyra, I think there's a very good chance that Asriel will wind up being dead at the end of this book.
Well, and it's an interesting question because, like, we know we can't really trust Mrs. Coulter, but she also is the only, like, POV that we get out of the two of them. We never see Asriel's POV, really. Like, Mrs. Coulter, we hear what she's thinking in a much more, Asriel, when we're with him, we're just seeing the external conversations that he's having. It doesn't feel like we connect with him the way that we do.
We had him as a POV when she was first captured and brought to the Citadel. And he's like,
right.
She's trying to play me real good. Like, but I do agree we get less time with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't trust him. I think he's going to get played for a sucker. I don't trust that he's doing what he's doing for, like, noble intentions even necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, he still killed that kid for his own ends.
Yeah.
Like,
most definitely.
It would be foolish to trust him.
So she summons the alethiometrist and asks him what the hell is going on with Lyra. And he tells her all about the world of the dead and her letting everybody out to dissolve into the ether and basically ending death. And she's just like sitting there stunned. Oh, okay. And she says, will she come out alive? But no, I know you can't predict. Has she? And he says, she's suffering. She's in pain. She's afraid. But she has the companionship of the boy and of the two Galavespian spies, and they are still all together.
Does he tell her that she doesn't have her demon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that came up, but I couldn't remember if it came up here. I know, or is it when he's talking to Asriel that he's like, yeah, they're cats now, and they're here. When they went over to the land of the dead, were they in Lord Asriel's, like, dimension where his citadel is? Because now he's saying that they are in that dimension.
I don't think they were. I think when we go back to them and they cut their way through, that's when she's talking to him.
No, I mean the demons. The demons are in Lord Asriel's dimension.
I think so. Like, it's hard to say.
Or maybe
I'm not really
know that
sure
from their perspective. That's where they were.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to.
Because if not, then, like, how the fuck did they get there?
I think they were. I'm not really sure how that works. I get confused. There's too many layers.
Maybe they had, and we're going too long between these. We're going to try and get the next one out pretty soon.
Yeah.
So, and it'll be good to have it finished.
Yeah.
I think definitely my enjoyment would have been better if maybe we had just been doing this and not trying to do other ones, and if we had been more consistent, because there are a lot of details that I think I maybe don't appreciate as much because I've forgotten them. And I read, like, my reading comprehension is like that of a goldfish. Like, when I read books, I usually listen to them, and I usually listen to them within about 2 to 3 days. Mm-hmm. And that way it's like binge watching something. You're able to appreciate it more,
right? Kind
of as a whole. I like to think that the demons went on some other crazy adventure that we don't even know about to get here. Like Doc came in the DeLorean. You gotta get in the DeLorean!
I really hope the demons are doing all right, though, because it's like such a...
Yeah.
It's
so sad. Like, that goodbye scene was so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because the alethiometrist says that they're both cats, which is weird because we've never seen Will's demon.
No.
But it didn't have a physical form when it was left behind.
Right.
Like, when they're floating away on that boat, you don't even see anything on the shore or anything like that. So it's weird. I wonder if it's invisible, but even in its invisible form, it is a cat.
The alethiometer can tell.
Or if, like, when they're reunited with their demons, Will's going to be like, the fuck is up with this cat? Holy shit, though. The cat. Remember the cat that was following him around? In his world?
Oh, yeah.
There was like a cat. I wonder if it's that cat. And that cat was his demon all along.
But it followed him around and then, like, abandoned him.
Maybe the real demon is the cat that followed us around all along.
Okay, so Lord Asriel is looking through a telescope at something that looks like a mountain.
Yeah.
That's coming at them.
This seems like a big deal.
Yeah.
Later on, he's like making plans. You know, they're talking about his plans being like, what's his plan? Oh, his plan is to take Lyra away until she becomes of age. But it seems like the war is here now. Mm-hmm. This doesn't seem like something you escape from. Heaven is literally outside your window and you're being attacked by demons and shit.
Yeah, I think that he's under the impression that if he gets a hold of Lyra, that he'll get Will, who can cut them into another dimension, which I guess, but like, can't God go there? I don't know how that works, really.
God can go there, and you're still losing all your resources, dude. Like, you have an army and a fortress and shit. You're not just gonna, like, teleport into fucking...
I could be wrong about his, like, intention there, but...
Well, we don't really know. They just, like... All we know, like, we know that he wants Will, and, like, of course, like, Will's got the fucking awesome, you know, quantum leap machine, and, but that doesn't mean that, you know, literally all we hear is that, oh yeah, he wants to get Lyra away from this until she gets old enough.
Right.
And I'm like, what? And also we found out in the course of these chapters that she is old enough. Like, she's old enough that the specters can see her, which means that when she gets her demon back, it will probably take its final form, and she can probably do whatever her destiny bullshit is.
She's not of age quite yet. She can see the specters just barely, and they notice her, but it's not... She's not of age yet. It's just that it's beginning.
Well, I think she is.
I mean, it's she can't see them, though. Like...
Well, do we know for sure that they're, like, even if you're an adult, if they're super easy to see, though?
I got the impression that you could, yeah.
I was never clear on whether or not they were any more... Like, when you're an adult, you can see them, and she can see them, but just not well. I wasn't sure that they were any more visible to normal people than what Lyra is seeing. I could be wrong on that, but that was just kind of how I read that, what I took that to mean.
Okay.
It's a hint. Like,
yeah,
it's not
most definitely.
It's not I am now old enough to be the Quetzar Cataract.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you get my Dune references now. Ugh. Go listen to the book club episode on Dune. I actually haven't listened to that. I would probably get a kick out of that.
But I don't think that, like, being of age is like a switch that gets flipped, you know?
I agree with that.
So, the Clouded Mountain, the Chariot. It's a big, giant mountain.
Right.
And there are lots of angels.
Right.
Lord Asriel came away from the telescope and stood up, hand shading his eyes. In hundreds, and then thousands, and tens of thousands, until half that part of the sky was darkened. The minute figures flew and flew and flew and kept on coming. Lord Asriel had seen the billion-strong flocks of blue starlings that wheeled at sunset around the palace of Emperor Kang Po, but he had never seen so vast a multitude in all his life. The flying beings gathered themselves and then streamed away slowly, slowly to the north and the south. Uh-oh.
And I like how he tries to play it off to his people, like, oh, we can take them. They're just a bunch of angels. Mm-hmm. Like, angels are wimpier than humans. Why do you think they like us so much? Which, this either means that, A, Asriel is just a chump, as I have been saying since fairly early on, since at least the second book, or that he's just, like, trying to perk his men up. Because he's trying to say that, you know, angels are jealous of us because we're so much more badass than they are.
I mean, you don't think that there's a possibility that he believes it? Like,
oh, I definitely. That's why I'm saying he's probably
that's
a
the
chump.
chump. Okay,
because
gotcha.
In the next chapter we see Lord Asriel's forces are getting their asses kicked by these angels because they're fucking angels, dude.
I'm not even certain that the angel thing is what's kicking their ass. It's just if you have billions of an enemy,
right?
No matter how strong you are, you're gonna go down. Like, I'm larger than a roach, but if a billion roaches came in through the door right now, I'd be kind of screwed.
I think I don't know. Even I don't think he's dumb enough to be like, well, they're jealous of us, so obviously it's because they're not as strong as us. Because that's very faulty logic.
Yeah.
Like, they're jealous of you because they don't get to have sex or, like, eat junk food, or they have to listen to crappy Christian rock. You know, there's a million different reasons why angels would be jealous, not because they're not as, like, buff as you.
Well, it's a kind of, like, we haven't seen anything to indicate that they're buff. Like, their asses are getting kicked later, but we don't actually see the mechanics of how that works.
Right. And we have met angels that were weak.
Yeah. I mean, the angel that comes to tell him about stuff literally gets blown away by a door opening.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, maybe they have certain abilities and stuff, but I wouldn't say that just translates to like being stronger.
My bottom line is that he's very overconfident.
That's fair.
And that totally plays out. But it's whether or not he's actually overconfident or if he's trying to like inspire his men. It could be that he's not a dummy. And I know I like harp on him because I find his arrogance annoying, but like he's not a complete idiot. He's like managed to do all this stuff and amass an army.
That's true. So yeah, isn't it something to bring a child like that into the world? You'd think it was enough to go alone to a king of the armored bears and trick his kingdom out of his paws, but to go down into the world of the dead and calmly let them all out. And that boy, I want to meet that boy. I want to shake his hand. Did we know what we were taking on when we started this rebellion? No. But did they know? The authority and his regent, this Metatron, did they know that what they were taking on when my daughter got involved? And the answer to that is probably not. I'm going to guess, even though one would think God would know because of the all-knowingness.
Well,
but
the church didn't know about this weird prophecy. Like they had or maybe some of them did, but Mrs. Coulter didn't.
Yeah, the church is a different thing than God.
Right.
You know? Like, that is the kind of thing that I kept struggling with when I was reading this for the first time. Was like, so this God isn't the God that I know, who always knows everything that's going on at all times and can see all of the outcomes of all of them, like Littlefinger.
Yes, just like Littlefinger.
This is a God that like is limited for some reason and in ways that aren't well defined.
Right.
You know.
Well, and as we find out at the beginning of this book, like God isn't the creator.
Right.
He's the first angel.
Right.
And even he is no longer in charge. It's like his lieutenant.
Yep.
So there's like levels of like a copy of a copy sort of thing where it's not like there's this grand intentionality to the universe, which makes it more interesting, you know?
Yeah, most definitely.
It's not like the end of Dogma. Have you seen Dogma?
Yes. Don't remember it very well.
I actually don't either. Maybe I shouldn't talk about Dogma. Other than the fact that I don't like it very much.
Yeah, I remember just being kind of like whatever about it, and people were blown away, and I was like, I guess. But I think living with my mom just sort of like took all of the wind out of their sails for me, and I was like, duh. Let's see. Mr. Baz... how do they pronounce his name? Because I call him Mr. Basilides when I'm reading it.
Where are we at? We're at midnight. We at
377 in my book anyway.
Oh yeah. Mr. Basilides.
Is that how they say it in the audiobook?
I read this chapter, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I read the first chapter. I listened to the second too. Yeah, Basilides sounds right to me.
Right. So let's see. You must be very fatigued because the poor guy has like not slept in days because all he's been doing is reading this alethiometer. And he says, when we join the battle, we shall have a new objective. My daughter and this boy have become separated from their demons somehow. So it didn't come up before. It comes up here.
That's what I thought.
And managed to survive. And their demons are somewhere in this world. Correct me if I'm summarizing wrongly, Mr. Basilides. And their demons are in this world, and Metatron is intent on capturing them. If he captures their demons, the children will have to follow. And if he can control those two children, the future is his forever. Our task is clear. We have to find the demons before he does and keep them safe till the girl and the boy rejoin them. So the Galavespian asks what form they have, and he says they are not yet fixed. They might be any shape. And this is when they decide what's going to happen, and there is a Galavespian who has to take over for the missing Lord Roke, or the dead Lord Roke, because he died with Mrs. Coulter. So then Lord Asriel asks Zephania, what do you know of this Metatron? He was once a man. Does he still have the physical strength of a human being? He came to prominence long after I was exiled, the angel said. I have never seen him up close, but he would not have been able to dominate the kingdom unless he was very strong indeed, strong in every way. Most angels would avoid fighting hand to hand. Metatron would relish the combat and win. And then finally, Mr. Basilides tells us that their bomb not only opened an abyss below the worlds, but also fractured the structure of things so profoundly that there are fissures and cracks everywhere. Somewhere nearby, there must be a way down to the edge of that abyss, and I want you to look for it. Because that's how he plans on destroying Metatron. That's pretty solid idea.
Yeah.
Go to the giant abyss and throw the guy in, kind of, basically.
That's not bad.
I don't know how that works, though, because, like, supposedly you can't touch angels.
Can you not? You couldn't touch the ones earlier, I thought.
I don't think so. I mean, he says earlier that you put your hand through mist, and that's, like, what they are. They don't have any flesh.
Maybe it's because he has the physicality of a man, though? Like
maybe
like the stronger you are, even though you're stronger, you can still be. That means you can be touched.
Maybe. So yeah, that's their plan, is dealing with that, and then Mrs. Coulter has a scene with Lord Asriel that's like probably the nicest the two of them have been to each other in this entire series so far.
Right.
And she basically is just like, we should not have left her. We should have raised her and gotten married and stayed together. And he's just like so thrown by this, but she's gone through a lot, and her like mind about a lot of things has changed. And I don't think he has kept up with that because he's very busy, but he hasn't gone through the kind of things that she has,
right.
So he's super involved, but he hasn't faced the same trials and whatnot. And let's see, the other day when you spoke about her so bitterly and about me, I thought you hated her. I could understand you hating me. I never hated you, but I could understand. I could see why you might hate me, but I couldn't see why you hated Lyra. And then she realizes then she tells him, like, I realized that you just totally lied to me about getting rid of Dust. And why didn't you just tell me the truth? And he says, I wanted you to come and join me, and I thought you would prefer a lie. So that's, because at the end of that book, when he says that, we were both kind of like, well, wait, what the fuck? But it turns out that he was just saying that because he wanted her on his side, and he knew that was what her objective had been with the church.
Yeah. And then she's gonna kill him.
Yeah. Well... yeah, I don't know.
Moving like someone in a dream, she got to her feet, picked up the rucksack that lay in the corner of the room, and reached inside it for her pistol. And what she would have done next, no one knew, because at that moment, the sound of footsteps came running up the stairs. She's like, this is why you don't trust this lady.
She might have been about to kill herself.
You never know what crazy shit she's going to do. Yeah, she may have killed himself. That's not what Asriel wanted either, Like, people need to stop giving her an inch.
That's fair. So yeah, excuse me, my lord. 2 demons, they've been seen not far from the eastern gate in the form of cats. The sentry tried to talk to them, bring them inside, but they wouldn't come near. So, then the Mrs. Coulter says to the cat, I can't see any other way. I think he knew at once what she meant, and he leaped to her breast, and they embraced, and then she found her fur-lined coat, and they very quietly left the chamber and made their way down the dark stairs. So, what did you think at this moment when she's like, I think we'll...
I was thinking just like, oh, she's going to go do something that I didn't even see coming, because that's like... I've given up on even trying to figure out what she's going to do next, because it's almost always going to be something that makes me think that she's not on the side that she winds up being on.
That's fair. So, we go back to Lyra and Will here. And they are in the world that they, like, broke out into the first time and let everybody turn into dust.
Right.
But they have to go back into, like, the dead world again, which sucks super much. And they are suffering a ton from not having their demons, and it's just like this constant aching, terrible pain.
Mm-hmm.
And
Will feels it too.
Yeah. And the two Gallivespians are not doing super great because they have short lifespans.
Yeah.
And they're on their way out.
I like how they just drop it in a sentence. They're like, oh, by the way, they're super old and about to die now. Like, we knew that they had short lifespans, and we knew that the land of the dead was like being hard on them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we knew that, they're like 900 years old, like they're about to die.
Okay, yeah.
They're at the end of their bug's life.
And Lyra names the harpy Gracious Wings.
Right.
Which I hate that name.
Yeah, it's not a very... I don't like that she's just like, hey, I've been thinking about how you don't have a name, and this is your name now. Bye. Like, she's not like, do you like this name? How do you feel about having a name? She's just like, your name is this. It felt almost Lord of the Ringsian.
Okay.
Because in Lord of the Rings, they're always like, we shall call you Scooby-Doo. And it's a great
I didn't know
name.
about that tie-in. Wow.
It's the name given to us by the king 300 years ago.
I guess I really wasn't a good fan.
What?
I guess I really wasn't a real fan. I didn't know the origins of Scooby-Doo.
You don't know about Scooby-Doo?
Nope.
Yeah. He's the famous elf horse from 400 years ago.
Oh, God.
Solved a lot of mysteries, that horse.
So, yeah, she says, if I know you're here, I shan't be afraid, Lyra said. And I'm like, well, you should be afraid, I guess, a little still, because that's a terrifying harpy. But, okay, if you're friends now. So Will has to open the way, and when he starts to, he looks at his father's ghost and gets distracted and wishes his mom was there too, and almost breaks the knife again.
It's so weird to me that they just, that was that at the beginning of this book or the end of the last book that they're like, it was this book where it's like, if he thinks about his mom, his knife is going to break, and it's not just that he's distracted by feelings, because when he's thinking about his dad, it doesn't happen. It's only when he thinks about his mom, which is weird.
I think because his mom isn't there.
And he's like more attached to his mom. Obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like a combination of his attachment to her, almost like he wants so much to go back and be with her that the knife can't decide what to do.
Okay, that makes sense.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, you clearly want to go there, but you're asking me to go here, and I think you don't really want that. So, and then it just snaps,
That's a good explanation. They may have touched on that when it came up. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
That's an interesting thought. Instead, it just makes me think that the knife is allergic to Mama's boys.
So yeah, Lyra stops him, and he's like, "Oh God, and she's like, "Yeah, I could see. Look at me, Will." And he looks at her, and the knife comes loose, and then he tries again. And he finally is able to cut the way through. And the first thing they sensed was noise. The light that struck in was dazzling, and they had to cover their eyes, ghosts and living alike, so they could see nothing for several seconds but the pounding, the explosions, the rattle of gunfire, the shouts and screams were all instantly clear and horribly frightening. And John Perry and Lee Scoresby, who've both been soldiers, are just like, oh shit, there's a war. Well, seen that before.
We know about those.
Yeah.
We know about those wars.
And it is, shit is really starting to happen. There's rockets going off. There's a Gallivespian who, attacks a guy in the throat with their spur and, takes their copter away.
That was weird that they could see that to me. I guess we don't know where the camera is for this scene of carnage, but Gallivespians are really small. So this would have to be happening, right next to him.
I like to think that it was just, they could just see a black dot. And it just went directly for his throat, and then the guy goes down, and you're like, oh, that's what's going on. You know what I mean?
I really enjoy the idea of a Gallivespian trying to fly a helicopter.
I mean, if it's an intention craft, it would just need to...
It's not, it's a helicopter. Intention crafts are a super special...
Yeah, I guess that's right, thing. Huh? Diving to attack a flying machine whose human pilot tried to fight him off hand to hand.
I guess it just says flying machine. It could be a freaking airship or a jetpack.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a human. Yeah, I don't know. So this is when the wraiths,
The specters.
specters. Thank you. I keep wanting to say wraiths.
Sure. Just remember your favorite James Bond.
Oh no. They show up, and it turns out that these deadites can jump out and attack some specters.
Right. Well,
So-
we knew that. We knew that from the last section that we read.
Yeah, it's just like, it's basically, when you said it was Lord of the Ringsy, this is a little bit more of a direct, like...
Yeah. Will is Aragorn, like, running at them with a sword.
Right.
With a whole bunch of ghosts behind him.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a very cool idea. I'm always pro an army of ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that into ghost stories, but if we're talking about like an army of ghosts, that's pretty cool.
I like ghost stories a lot.
I know
You're
you
crazy.
do. I know.
And as they're coming out, for some reason, all of God's forces, who are winning, start to like take off.
Right. Well, they take off so that the specters can attack.
Right. Because that's the first thing that they see is them taking off, and they're like, what the fuck? Why are they doing this? And then they see the specters, and they're like, oh no.
I just really enjoy that, the last chapter, Azrael's just like, we're going to take these guys on. They're a bunch of babies. We're going to kick their ass. And then you don't like organically see that the armies of God are more formidable than Lord Azrael thought.
Mm-hmm.
Just the first time someone just pokes their head around a corner and Lord Azrael's army is just getting its ass
Just getting
spanked.
flattened.
It's been bent over God's knee and is just getting a spanking horribly. And to the point that the thing that like is turning the tide is like a kid and a bunch of ghosts.
Yeah. A kid and some ghosts. That's a good children's book name.
It's a terrible children's book.
I like it. I'd be into it.
A kid and some ghosts.
So let's see. I think that they can see them, babe, because of the way this guy like frames off with his rifle and looks at the specters coming at him. I don't think it's the same as it is for Lyra.
All right.
And let's see, they could make nothing of this ghostly spectral combat. Will made his way through the middle of it, brandishing his knife, remembering how the specters had fled from it before. Wherever he went, Lyra went too, wishing she had something to fight with as Will was doing, but looking around, watching more widely. She thought she could see the specters from time to time, and an oily glistening in the air. And it was Lyra who felt the first shiver of danger. So all of a sudden, they both get like yanked to the ground by this horrible, nauseous fear and realize that somewhere their demons are getting attacked.
Gotcha.
And it is very upsetting, really, because of knowing how close Pan probably is. Like, she can feel that.
Right.
And so, like, she's running around screaming his name, trying to find him before whatever gets to him.
Yeah.
And it lets up for a second, so it seems like he gets safe, but then it starts again. Like, so she has no idea what's going on, just knows that he's somewhere somewhat nearby. And that just sounds like a nightmare to me,
And is there anything worse than chasing after a cat? A scared cat that's running around. You're like, God damn it, get back here.
Well, we don't know that it's a cat still.
Oh, it's a cat.
Because they were cats when they approached Azrael's forces. But the alethiometer said that they're not yet fixed. So
Right. I'm imagining cats.
Okay, that's fair.
Because cats are good at running around and stuff.
Yeah, they are. They're the only animal that's really that good at that.
Yeah. Like, nothing else is good at that. Was it going to be a freaking...
Antelope?
Yeah.
That's a good runner.
An anteater?
So let's see. Oh, and then the witches come out. Witches, Rutus Gotti's clan, and Rena Meaties, and half a dozen others. Every single witch carrying a torch of flaring pitch pine dripped in bitumen. I don't know what that is. We're streaming over the fortress from the east from the last of the clear sky and flying straight toward the storm. So this is the part that confuses the shit out of me.
Right.
Because angels you can't really touch, but apparently they can like battle you.
Right.
And they can be lit on fire.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fire, man. And it's some kind of special witchy fire.
Witchy fire,
I don't
okay.
have a problem with that.
Sure, witch fire.
The witches are so ill-defined to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're like people, but they can do spells, sort of, and they live longer than people, and their demons don't work properly. But I don't know, it's just
Their
weird.
demons work, they just work differently.
They work differently. They're able to, like, run away and shit, which
Right.
is, like, crazy in Lyra's world.
Right.
They're just weird to me, because I don't really know what the source of their power is. Mm-hmm. Do we ever really get into that?
No,
or is it just
no.
that they're, they're witchy ways?
I think they're just like a different race. Like
elves.
maybe not quite, more like wizards in Harry Potter.
Right.
But I don't know. Even though they're all women. So that's something. But so then this thing starts to happen again where they're both trying to find Pan. With them everywhere went the two Gallivespians, warning them to look this way, to go that way, watching out for the specters, for the children who could still not fully see. There we go. Yeah, so they can see them. But Lyra had to hold Salmakia in her hands because the lady had little strength left to cling to Lyra's shoulder. Tialis was scanning the skies all around, searching for his kindred and calling out whenever he saw a needle-bright darting movement through the air above. But his voice had lost much of its power, and in any case, the other Gallivespians were looking for the clan of colors of their two dragonflies, the electric blue and the red and yellow. And those colors had long since faded, and the bodies that had shone with them lay in the world of the dead. That's really sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
All right. And then this is when the intention craft shows up again, and it says it was flying low, very low, from the fortress. It skimmed overhead no higher than a rooftop above them, and then moved away into the heart of the storm. And that is Mrs. Coulter, but we do not know that yet. Until the next chapter.
Yeah, it's weird that they see it because you think it's going to, like, pick them up or something, but I guess it's just a coincidence.
It just, like, kind of goes past them, But, yeah, so she's heading straight into this damn cloud of mountain.
Right. Which I definitely didn't expect.
Yeah, same. And she parks and gets out, and this angel is like, well, what are you doing? And she just goes...
Well, before that, we see the litter and the crazy, creepy old guy.
Oh, right, duh.
And I actually, at first, I thought that this was going to be Metatron, because Metatron was an old man.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I was like... So it's like this... when you die, I guess you can become of whatever version of yourself you want. Because, like, the guy that they're describing later is, like, younger than this. But I was just like, oh, that'd be crazy if they're like, oh, yeah, he's a real badass, this angel. He's, like, the strongest angel there is. He's super buff and shit. But he's just an old man. That's just, like, really badass for an angel. Because he's an old man who can actually, like, punch stuff if he wants to. But he's, like, 70 years old. But no, instead it turns out that's the authority.
Yeah, I love the description of him. She had the impression of terrifying decrepitude, of a face sunken in wrinkles, of trembling hands, and of a mumbling mouth and rheumy eyes.
Yeah, it's real spooky.
Terrifying decrepitude. Oh, that is a hell of a phrase. So... Mrs. Coulter goes in to talk to Metatron.
Yeah, and I do like the angel that you were mentioning who's just like, okay.
What is your business? And she just says, no, please don't waste time. Take me to the Regent at once. He's waiting for me.
I really enjoy the idea that angels are super gullible.
I'm fine with it.
They live in a society where you're just with things that are incapable of lying, which that's probably not how these angels actually work. Because they're all about deceiving and shit.
That's true.
But yeah, it's funny that he's just, oh, okay. Like, imagine an entire society of Ned Flanderses.
And yeah, she says, disconcert them, she thought. Keep them off balance. And this angel did not know what he should do. So he did as she told him. I really like that. Just, I don't know how else to handle this. So I guess I'll just do the thing you said because I can't think of anything. which is shockingly how many people function, including myself at times. And she goes and meets Metatron, who wants to know where her daughter is. And she's like, well, I don't know, but her demon's here. And she has to tell him to shield himself because he's so bright that she can't even, like, look in his direction.
Yeah. I was thinking of the gods in the Hercules movie. How they're all glowy.
Yeah, that's true. That was a fun, like, illustrative style.
Yeah, I really like the look of that movie. I just watched that for the first time a month ago. And very enjoyable.
Yeah, it was.
Fun movie. But yeah, he's just doing his, again, just like I'm thinking of God from Monty Python. Just, of course it's a good idea. Yeah, he's all business at first and is like judging her and shit, but he sees a little bit of thigh and he's like, on the other hand.
And she's like, listen, you think that I'm not gonna totally betray him? Why don't you look at me and tell me what you see? And he says, corruption and envy and lust for power, cruelty and coldness, a vicious probing curiosity, pure poisonous toxic malice. You have never from your earliest years shown a shred of compassion or sympathy or kindness without calculating how it would return to your advantage. You have tortured and killed without regret or hesitation. You have betrayed and intrigued and gloried in your treachery. You are a cesspit of moral filth.
So, wanna fuck?
Right? Pretty much.
Basically what he does.
Yep.
He completely falls for it like a chump.
Yeah, as he said it, she felt a little gush of triumph. So you see, I can betray him easily. I can lead you to where he's taking my daughter's demon, and you can destroy Azrael, and the child will walk unsuspecting into your hands.
So as you can tell, you can totally trust me.
Yeah, that's fair. When I was a man, he said, I had wives in plenty, but none was as lovely as you.
Oh,
that is not the way to do it, guys.
He really knows how to talk to people.
Oh my God. You know, I've fucked a lot, but I've never really wanted to fuck as much as I do when I look at you. Ooh, babe. And she asks him, is it not time you had a consort? That was the moment she felt the most exposed and most in danger, but she trusted to her flesh and to the strange truth she'd learned about angels, perhaps especially those angels who had once been human. Lacking flesh, they coveted it and longed for contact with it. And Metatron was close now, close enough to smell the perfume of her hair and to gaze at the texture of her skin, close enough to touch her with scalding hands. There was a strange sound like the murmur and crackle you hear before you realize that what you're hearing is your house on fire. I love that.
Yeah, I totally thought that meant that she was about to get heat visioned to death, which would have been actually pretty satisfying, given how much I've just been like, okay, at some point someone has to stop trusting her. But nope, Metatron's a sucker, and that is also satisfying because we hate this guy.
Yeah, agreed.
But it would have been pretty amusing to me if just you know, like that moment in Spider-Man Homecoming, she had just been like vaporized and turned into a skeleton in like a pile of ash on the ground out of nowhere.
No, that was the house burning down. It's just what it sounds like when he gets turned on, baby.
Come on, baby, light my house on fire.
The angels carrying the litter left the clouded mountain and flew south. Metatron's orders had been to take the authority to a place of safety away from the battlefield because he wanted him kept alive for a while yet. But rather than give him a bodyguard of many regiments, which would only attract the enemy's attention, he had trusted to the obscurity of the storm, calculating that in these circumstances a small party would be safer than a large one. And so it might have been, if a certain Cliffgast, busy feeding on a half-dead warrior, had not looked up just as a random searchlight caught the side of the crystal litter. Something stirred in the Cliffgast's memory. He paused, one hand on the warm liver, and as his brother knocked him aside, the recollection of a babbling Arctic fox came to his mind. At once he spread his leathery wings and bounded upward, and a moment later the rest of the troop followed. So this is an unexpected turn of events.
So this is a Cliffgast from earlier in the book who found out what the Arctic Fox said. The Arctic Fox overheard the King of the Bears talking to the witch?
Yes.
And I can't remember what he said. All I remember him is finding out that Lee Scoresby was dead.
Right.
But
I'm like going back to try and find this exact moment, but...
Cliffgasts were fond of fox when they could get it. The little creatures were cunning and hard to catch, but their meat was tender and rank. Before he killed this one, the Cliffgast let it talk and laughed at its silly babble. Bear go south. Swear. Witch is trouble. True. Swear. Promise. Bears don't go south. Lying filth. True. King Bear go south. Show you walrus. Fine fat good. King Bear go south. The flying things got treasure. Flying things. Angels. Crystal. Treasure. Flying things. Like Cliffgasts? Treasure? Like light. Not like... Motherfucker. Cliffgast. Rich. Crystal. And witch troubled. Witch sorry. Scoresby dead. So apparently they know something about a crystal treasure? Which I guess they're thinking that's what this is, but I don't remember what they talked about being a crystal treasure.
I don't remember either.
So that doesn't really help.
Hold on. Well, we looked, guys, and we couldn't figure out what the crystal box in the initial conversation was about.
Yeah, they do describe the angels as crystalline, so maybe like it's just as simple as that, and that's like clicking with them.
Maybe.
But,
I feel better because I went and looked at Mark Reed's, and he did these books, and when he got to this chapter, he couldn't remember what the hell it was about either.
Good.
So it's not just us.
Right. But these Cliffcasts show up at the end of this chapter, and they have found the crystal box. They've like killed the angels, and they're like, "Hey, God, you in there?"
They're bashing on it, trying to get it open.
They're mugging God, which is pretty great.
Meanwhile, Lord Asriel is going to try and find that giant rift in the universe, and he notices all this dust flowing into it and down and down and down, and has figured out that it's getting drained away somehow down here.
Yeah.
And he realizes that the ghosts are over here, that he's like able to see across.
So, did he find the hole in the land of the dead that Will and Lyra came through? Is that where he is?
I think that because all right, this is a little bit unclear to me. But when Lyra and Will cut their way into a different world, those ghosts step through and immediately like evaporate into the air, right?
Right.
But when they cut into his world, they're still ghosts and they can still go and battle specters.
Right, which is weird to me.
Yeah. So I think that the other world that Will and Lyra were in is specifically like the world that the ghosts have to go to in order to dissolve. And that is not the same world as Lord Asriel's world. And that's the world where Lyra and Will spent the night.
Oh, see, I thought it was a thing where kind of like how the angel was able to like keep himself together by like focusing. That's what I thought Lee and Will's dad were doing. That the fighters were just like, keeping it together by sheer force of will. They wouldn't be able to do it for long.
Maybe. But whatever it is, they're not dissolving into Lord Asriel's world. They've been dissolving into a peaceful world that she and Will went and slept in and did not want to leave.
Okay. Maybe that's what heaven is supposed to be.
Maybe. Will and Lyra were soaked through, shivering, racked with pain, and stumbling blindly through mud and over rocks. And finally, she says, "I can hear horses coming. Lord Asriel has no cavalry." That's, what's her face? Tialis.
Yeah.
And they just basically start to run. And they had to keep their heads low to see where they were treading to avoid twisting an ankle or worse, and thunder exploded overhead as they ran, so they couldn't hear the screeching and snarling of the Cliffgasts until they were upon them. The creatures were surrounding something that lay glittering in the mud, something slightly taller than they were, which was lay on its side, a large cage perhaps with walls of crystal. They were hammering at it with fists and rocks, shrieking and yelling. And before Will and Lyra could stop and run the other way, they had stumbled right into the middle of the troop. So maybe they killed the angels, or maybe the angels just flew away and left God there?
I mean, either way, it's pretty hilarious.
Right? It is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, but this is one of the few times in this series that I've gotten to the end of a chapter and I've been like, no, what's next? And I saw the title of the next chapter, which no spoilers, but I wish they didn't name their chapters things that sounded so crazy.
Like the death of Superman.
Well, that's different. Also, that story is terrible. But,
yeah. So that's the thing that's happening is a bunch of cliff ghasts are attacking the Authority in his giant cage.
It would be pretty great if Superman was in this battle.
Would it? I mean, is Metatron not kind of Superman-y?
No. How dare you? Oh, yeah, that's how Superman is. You know, I fucked a lot of chicks in my day. Well, how you doing?
Yep.
Yeah, that's just like
I mean,
Superman.
Lois is his one weakness.
He has other people are his weakness, not just Lois.
All right.
And also Kryptonite. What the fuck are you talking about? He has another notable weakness.
Kryptonite. Kryptonite.
I'm wondering how you're going to manage that. But yeah, I am looking forward to... How many episodes do we have left? We got like 2, right?
Yeah, just 2. So guys, we're thinking about banging one out this weekend and finishing this book. And then from here on, focusing just on Orphan Black, which we had been doing. We took a bit of time off because I took some vacation time. So we are finally going to be finishing this one up, wrapping it up. We tried to record this twice already this week.
Yeah.
And
so,
Owen got called in and stuff. So.
No telling whether or not we'll actually do what we're talking about. I
Yeah.
feel like we're always saying that. We're like, we're finally going to get a hold on this. We're really going to knock this out. And then other things happen.
I mean, this is what happens, man. We try. We really do put in an effort. But when people just call in sick or suddenly quit, what are you going to do? So, guys, thank you so much for listening. We love y'all. And we're just going to take off. Just wrap this up.
Yeah.
So we will see you hopefully in just a few days with a new episode.
Yeah. Give us an iTunes review.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Do that.
Shop on Amazon. You know, the website.
At unspoiledpodcast.com/Amazon. Don't just shop on Amazon.
That would be even better.
Yeah.
I mean, you should shop on Amazon. They got a lot of cool stuff. You can buy a new pair of slacks. You know, maybe some gray slacks. They look so good with your eyes. All right, goodbye, everybody.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.